Last weekend I went to the Peak District with my dad and it was a really nice day out. It was a 12-mile hike to go to somewhere we've both never been before called Allport Castles, and the plan was to get some really nice photos. The day was pretty weird, sometimes it was sunny, then it was rainy, but once we actually got there after this 12-mile hike, the weather was just so bad. It just didn't look good at all. It was overcast, the sun had gone in, there was no sort of like sunlight on the hills or anything. It was just really disappointing. And this happens a lot for landscape photographers. You know, you'll go somewhere and the light just isn't very good and you'll come away a bit disappointed. It's just the sort of nature of landscape photography. So in the end, I didn't really get any good photos and I was pretty happy to just delete them, to be quite honest, because none of them were very good. Well, 3 days after this trip, I got an email from Skylum, and for those of you who don't know, Skylum is the company that makes Luminar NEO, which is a photo editing software that also uses AI for some of its features, basically asking me if I wanted to test out the software and make a video about it. And I guess this email couldn't really have come at a better time, considering I just came back from a trip where I wasn't happy with any of the photos. So in this video, I want to see if I can save a photo which is subjectively bad, or is it even subjectively bad? I guess it's probably objectively bad, considering there's no good light, the composition isn't really that good, and to be honest, I don't think any photographer would actually use this photo because it's just so bland. Before we head into the software, I do want to mention that Skylum are doing a huge spring discount at the moment. I think it's around 86% or something ridiculous on their packages, and if you want to save even more money, you can use the code JACK10 and get 10% off your order, and this will work on any of the plans. So now that's out of the way, let's head into the software. Now I always start off my editing in Lightroom, and the reason I do that is because I just like having all of my images in a library, but the really nice thing about Luminar NEO is that it actually integrates with Lightroom and Photoshop, so you can right click on your image, go to edit in, and then you can select Luminar NEO. Now I don't know why I've got two versions of Luminar NEO here, but both work either way. So if I click on that, edit a copy with the Lightroom adjustments, just make sure the settings are correct. Going to do sRGB, and then Luminar NEO will open. Okay, so here we are in Luminar NEO, and I'm just going to maybe zoom in around 39%, 35%, just so you can see the image here and the interface. So when you first open Luminar NEO, it can look a little bit intimidating, a little bit confusing potentially. You've got all of these options on the side, like what is all of this stuff? Well, these are just the presets. And what I do like to do is open up one of these presets when I first start editing an image to see if I can get a sort of, I don't know, baseline color going before I go into the main edit. So what I particularly like is going on easy landscapes and then going on the long exposure. Now the reason for that is you get a little bit more vibrancy, warmth. I mean, if we look at the original photo, so you click on this little eye icon down here, you can see that this one is quite cold. There's also not that much color going, and that's due to a lack of light. So when there's not a lot of light on something, you don't get a lot of saturation. But now with this long exposure preset added, you can see here we're getting some of that vibrancy back, which is quite nice. So I'd say that's pretty much done. I'm going to go to edit now, and then you'll see all of the different editing features of this software on the right hand side, and there is a lot to go through. But what I'm going to do straight away is go to the sky replacement, because I mean, look at this. This is just, it's blown out and it's overcast, it's grey, it's not very nice. But I'm not going to use one of these preset ones. So as you can see, you do get a lot of preset sky replacements included. But the reason I don't want to use one of these is because a lot of people do use them. And you start to recognize the same sky across different photos. And then you can tell that someone's used a sky replacement. So what I'm actually going to do is use one of my own photos. So I can select it here because I've already imported it previously. But what you can do is you click on the plus icon here, and then it'll bring up your directory, and then you can import any photo you like. But anyway, here is a photo I've taken in the Peak District, but as you can see, it's actually in the sky, which we don't want. So what you want to do is open up your sky orientation and adjust the horizontal position. So I just want to lower this, so there you go. And then I want the horizon lines to sort of match, so about there works. And as you can see, this has done a really good job of replacing the sky without any sort of issues really with the mask, which is quite impressive. Now, as for the sky, I'm going to leave this as is at the minute. I mean, I don't think anybody would know that that was a sky replacement. Now, I noticed on the left here, there is actually a slight little bit of the horizon from the actual sky replacement I've used. So we just want to adjust the horizontal position a little bit more to bring that down so you can't see the hills from my other photo in this one. So I think that works. So another thing you can do is head to your Enhance tab, and here you can just adjust the Accent AI and the Sky Enhancer. And you can see that when I enhance the sky, the highlights come down a little bit, the contrast is bumped up. And when you use Accent AI, then we really start seeing some improvements. Now, some of you may think that this is a little oversaturated, so what you can do is go to your Develop tab and just turn down the saturation if you feel this is too saturated for your liking. And I think that looks a bit better actually, a bit more natural. So as you can see on the right here, there's a lot of different features, especially in this Essentials tab that you'll be used to from Lightroom, Photoshop, Camera Raw, and so on. But to be honest, for this photo, I don't really need to use many of these. What I do want to use is the sun rays. So this is under the Creative tab. Now you click on Place Sun Center, and then it comes up and you can just drag it whereabouts your sun is. Now I'm already getting some sun rays through the clouds, which is nice. But what I can do is add even more. Now what you will notice straight away is that this is very white compared to the orange hue that was coming through from the actual sun. So what you can do is go down to warmth and just adjust the sun warmth as you need to. And that looks pretty good. I'd say that looks quite realistic. Now you can adjust the sun rays, however you like. You can adjust the amount, so it's really, a lot of sun rays going on. I think that looks a little ridiculous. That's way too much. And what's nice is that you can see that the sun rays actually have an effect on the overall image. So Luminar is looking at this as that is the light source. If we adjust the overall look, we darken other areas of the image. So it gives a more natural look to the edit. You can also adjust the sun rays length. So you can have them smaller like that coming out of the cloud, or really long across the whole image. I actually prefer shorter. I think that looks a lot better. Then you've also got your penetration, so how much the sun rays are coming through the clouds. So you've got like a little bit there, that actually looks really natural because it blends in with my original photo, but you can enhance it a bit if you like, and I think that looks pretty nice. So I'm going to leave the sun rays as is. So let's again look at the original, and then look at the edit. So already we're seeing a massive improvement to the original photo. I mean, to be honest, I could just leave this like this now and say, that's it. I think this is a pretty good picture now, and I don't really need to edit it anymore. But there's a few features I do want to show you. Under Creative, we also have Relight AI, which is pretty cool. So what you can do is adjust the brightness. So you can have brightness near, and as you can see, it adds some brightness to the front of the image, but that doesn't make sense for this, given that the sun is all the way at the back. So you might actually want to darken this a little bit, so that feels more realistic. Then you can increase brightness far, which actually makes more sense given that the sun is over there. But then we're overexposing the sky a little bit, but we can fix that. So there's a lot of really good editing features in this Creative tab, including dramatic, which is quite nice. So if you increase it, it does add a bit of extra contrast. So it actually reduces saturation and creates that kind of bleach bypass look that some of you might be familiar with. So I'm not going to use that. There's also a mood filter, and from here you can choose a variety of different LUTs. So you can have cinematic toning, for example. You can also adjust the intensity, which is quite nice. And this looks pretty good. I could potentially see myself using this. There's also a mystical edit, which is quite nice. So you can increase this and it starts to add this sort of like soft look to it, which I guess from a creative standpoint might be useful for some people. For landscapes, probably not, unless you wanted like a really dreamy image. But what you can do is you can combine mystical with the glow. And if you add the glow, you see how the sky is really, it's like, well, it almost looks like it's being nuked. It can look pretty good if you use just a small amount of it, But there's different glow effects you can use. You can change it to glow. You got the Autumn effect, or the Autumn effect soft. Either way, all of these are pretty useful features to have. Now, one feature I really want to talk about is the super contrast, which is under the professional tab. Now, this is AI based, and essentially if I increase these different options, it will just increase the contrast. So for example, in the highlights contrast, if I bump that all the way up, you can see that we're getting a lot more contrast in the sky, and it feels less overexposed than when that's turned down to 0. So I'm going to increase that a little bit to maybe 46%. We've then got our mid-tone contrast. Now this, in my opinion, oversaturates the whole image. So this looks a little bit sort of, technicolor to me. I think this is overdoing it quite a bit. But you can add a little bit of this and just play around with it. You can also play around with the balance, although then you start getting some really weird, HDR effect looking images, which I'm not a fan of. Then you've also got shadow contrast, and I think increasing this makes the image look, I don't know, again, you've got that HDR effect, so I tend to keep this at 0. But the highlights contrast is really useful in my opinion. Now I think considering this is supposed to be a sunset, maybe we should add a little bit more warmth to the image, and you can do this under develop. Let me just find the right thing. I guess it's under color, so you can increase the color temperature, which, you know, I think this looks a little bit too green, so I'd probably have to play around a little bit with this to make it feel right. Maybe add some, increase the purples a little bit, decrease the saturation, just to make it feel like more of a sunset image. But what you can do as well actually is under landscape, there is a golden hour slider. But increasing this too much super oversaturates the image again, so this is only going to work in certain situations. But I think overall that looks pretty good actually. So I think for a final step, I'm just going to decrease the saturation a little bit as I feel it's still a little bit too vibrant. So bring that down, and yeah, now I think that that feels quite natural. And when we look at the original image, you can tell that the colors enhanced, especially in this new version, but not so over the top that it feels unrealistic. So there you go, that is how to improve a photo with Luminar NEO. What do you think? I think the edit is definitely a lot better than the original. I mean, I don't think it's even a fair comparison. The edit looks so much better. And I know some of you are watching this thinking, oh, the sky replacement, you know, it might not be something you'll ever do, and that's fine. There's plenty of other features in this software to enhance your photos. If you are interested in this software, there is only a few days left to get that huge discount. The link is in the description, and don't forget to use the code JACK10 to get 10% off your order. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, it really helps out my channel. If you want to see more from me, subscribe, hit that bell icon as well, and you'll be notified when I upload another video. And I definitely think I'll be covering some of the portrait features in another video, so subscribe for that.